Here on The Edge with Max Keiser. Well, is the economy going to start growing again, or is it going to start crashing again? Analysts are looking at the same set of data and coming up with two separate conclusions. They've gone completely schizophrenic. Now, in this show, we're going to look at a lot of stories. We're going to look at some headlines. We're going to look at some charts. Later on in the program, I'm going to be talking to Mark Faber, the editor of the Gloom, Doom, and Boom Report, to get his perspective. But first, let's bring on financial correspondent from London, the lovely Stacey Herbert. Stacey, are you there?
I'm doing well. Nice to be here, Max.
I see a couple of headlines here. They seem like they're butting up against each other. In opposition, free fall has stopped, or is it the worst is yet to come? What's going on here?
Well, the positive spin, the free fall has stopped, comes from the White House top budget official Peter Orszag, who said on Sunday when he was on CNN's State of the Union, the free fall in the economy seems to have stopped. He's also being backed up by the World Bank chief, Robert Zoellick, who says something similar, saying that the end is in sight. Now, the positive spin comes from traders, people actually out there buying and selling for themselves. And I believe you have a clip from Howard Davidovitz, who is the chairman of Davidovitz and Associates. He actually analyzes retail sales.
All right, so the government is saying that all seems okay, but in the money management business, the guys on the ground who are actually looking at all those billions of trades flow through the exchanges have a slightly different take. Is that what we're about to see?
I think so.
All right, let's listen.
So right now, they're doing everything they can to convince private money to come in. It's the greater fool theory. I think the worst is yet to come with the consumer. The worst is yet to come with the banks. The worst is yet to come with this country. We're going to be in a 10-year decline. Living standards are never going to be the same. You're going to have a little blip here or there, go up or down a little. Of course, we're a cyclical economy. The debt doesn't go away. How do you keep living standards the same?
The greater fool theory. That doesn't sound very good. I know that the American public has been playing the fool ever since Hank Paulson put the virtual gun to the head of Congress and demanded $700 billion in money back last fall when the Bush administration was still in power. And of course, that quickly morphed into tens of trillions of dollars. It seems that the hostage taking by the banking system, of the American banking system, and Congress continues unabated. So we've got, from what you're saying, Stacey, you've got the professional money managers who are not buying into this myth that there's the green shoots. The green shoots theory seems to be being trampled upon. And of course, another way to look at this are through the charts. So I believe you've got a couple of charts teed up as well, Stacey. Why don't you walk us through the first chart here?
Well, the charts seem to support the analyst assertion that the fact that the economy is recovering is preposterous. And you see, in the first chart, you see the unemployment numbers. Now, the blue line on the bottom shows a little bit tick down of initial claims. But if you look at the red line, this is just remarkable in this context. This is continued claims. These are people who are not finding jobs. They've lost their jobs, and they're unable to find anything. And you see, you know, in the four previous recessions going back all the way to 1972, is nothing at all like what you're seeing in this chart. It's nearly 7 million Americans who are continuing to be unemployed.
Right, and again, it's this statistical anomaly in the way the government reports numbers. They're constantly tweaking the numbers to hide and seek what's really going on. And what this chart shows is the unbelievable growth in the unemployment claims, which belies the notion sometimes of what the government says, because sometimes they hide the numbers when people stop looking for work, et cetera. It's like the other great false number that the U.S. government publishes, the GDP number, which is incredibly falsified and done so almost every quarter to kind of give the bankers another way to hide their illicit gains. Now we've got another chart queued up. Let's take a look at that one.
Yes, these are numbers out this week from the Federal Reserve Bank, and this shows the next leg, I think, of the crisis. And if Mr. Davidovitz is right, this is the worst is yet to come indeed. As you see, the default rate, the delinquency rate on consumer credit cards and commercial real estate are really starting to escalate. We've already seen the residential real estate and the consequence of Americans failing to pay their mortgages. But now we're about to hit the commercial real estate sector and consumer credit cards. Their delinquency rate is rising rapidly. It's up to nearly 6-7%.
Right. So in the City of London, for example, the commercial real estate in the City of London, the financial center, is like a see-through city. You've got all these incredible amounts of square footage empty. It's like Houston back in the early 80s when they had that big oil crash. They called it the see-through city. Now you've got the City of London. Miles and miles of office space, no tenants. Another big indication of what is really going on, and On the Edge with Max Keiser here on Press TV. We try to look beneath the headlines to try to find out what's really going on. Now what's really going on, Stacey, and back me up on this if you can, is that the insiders, these are the guys with the inside information. This is legal inside information. They have been huge sellers. Is that correct?
Yes, we're seeing in the markets a rate of selling by insiders nearing a market top, nearing a top that you saw in October 2007. And the insider sales are dwarfing the buys, both in frequency and volume. So insiders are selling their stocks in multi-million-dollar blocks, while the buys are only in the thousands of dollar range. The blocks of shares that insiders are selling is in like the tens of millions of dollars in the last few weeks, while the markets were rallying.
So it's a massive pump and dump scam, isn't it? The public is being encouraged to buy into this rally with the crazy people like Kramer over at CNBC saying, buy the rally, buy the rally. Meanwhile, the insiders, the smart money, is getting out. That should be illegal, I would think, but, it's allowed.
It's not just the television people telling them to buy. It's Peter Orszag, the Washington, the White House's own budget official.
This really points toward the rise of this financial oligarchy that just doesn't seem to be covered by any laws at all, or any ethics or morality at all. Well, let's take a look at something else here, a strange phenomenon, and I thank you for bringing it to our attention, is the late market trading. Why don't you set this up for us, and then we'll play this little vid.
Well, as I mentioned, the markets have been going up in the last 6-7 weeks. And on Fox News this week, they had an interesting interview with Dan Schaefer of Schaefer Asset Management, who follows the futures markets, and this is what he had to say.
I watch the futures every day, every tick. And tremendous amount of volume came in at several points during the last few weeks when the market was just about ready to break and shot right up again. And I'll give you
usually toward the end of the day.
Usually toward the end of the day. A week ago Friday, at 7 minutes to 4 o'clock, almost 100,000 S&P futures contracts were traded. And then in the last 5 minutes up to 4 o'clock, another 100,000 contracts were traded.
Yeah, Stacey, I've worked on Wall Street for many years, and this is what they call painting the tape. The idea is if you put a lot of buy orders in at the close and you get an uptick for the day, then the papers report it the next day as having had an up day the previous day. And psychologically, this sets people up to go in there and buy some more. It's painting the tape. It's a technique that's been used for ages. But what's interesting about this video, Stacey, is that what the Fox News is saying here is that at the end of the day, baskets of tens of millions of dollars are being used to paint not just the tape of an individual stock, but they're trying to paint the tape to create the illusion of the entire market closing on an uptick, which is supposed to give people that.
US President Barack Obama has vowed not to send American forces to wars without a reasonable cause. He has promised to bring an end to the unpopular